I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This is the PC Engine Files, and today we're looking at Off the Wall, an unreleased prototype by Tengen for TurboGrafx 16. The only game that Tengen officially published for TurboGrafx 16 is Clax, but they were working on this game for a lot of different systems besides the TurboGrafx. There's also a Sega Game Gear version among others, and as far as I know, none of them have officially come out, but all of them can be found at hiddenpalace.org. Now, there may be some confusion here due to the name Off the Wall and the fact that Tengen was a subsidiary of Atari. There is an Off the Wall game for Atari 2600. That was developed by Axlon and published by Atari. This one was actually developed by Tengen, a subsidiary of Atari. I know that's confusing. It's even more confusing given that they're both breakout clones, but the one on 2600 is rather primitive, and as you can see from this prototype, this is a lot more advanced, and probably would have been a really good game if they had finished it. What you've got here is a paddle that you move up and down with the D-pad, and you shoot a ball into these other three walls, and you're trying to ricochet it not just into the bricks to score points, but to eliminate enough bricks that you can get the ball into the exit. So there's some strategy involved here. You can't just break the bricks, you've got to get to the goal as well. But then again, maybe you don't want to get to the goal because you want to score more points, so you have to choose what you're trying to do. I imagine if this got a little further along in development, there would have been even more layers to this. Maybe you could have made the paddle go to one of the other walls instead of just up and down along one wall. If you could move to any wall and use it to rebound the ball, that would have been pretty interesting, especially since the gimmick seems to be that the wall that you're on doesn't have anything behind it, so the ball can't ricochet off that wall. So maybe you could keep that gimmick as the paddle moved around the entirety of the screen. Whatever wall the paddle is on, there's no wall there, so it's a risk-reward strategy. Like, you can switch walls, but then you have no backup. If you switch to that wall too late and the ball is already on its way there, it'll just sail right through. So you'd have to choose when to switch walls carefully. I also imagine they could have implemented some playfield enemies that would have hampered your ability to shoot the ball or knock it back toward you. It certainly seems like they had that in mind, because you just got that message on the screen that the flashing blocks are power-ups, but so far as I can tell, none of them actually do anything. I've not been able to hit a button to use the power-ups. Neither the 1 or the 2 button does anything, and I can't select them by pausing the game. I've tried, and really the only thing you can do other than play these demo levels is use the select button to switch to the next level. Like, if your level is fluky, if it doesn't work right, it'll just end the level and you can go to the next level. If you run out of lives and you just want to see the rest of the boards, you can hit it and it'll just go to the next level. So you can get a sneak peek of all the levels that they had implemented at the time this prototype was in development. And you'll notice that some are just missing altogether. Like, it'll randomly skip a number. Like, you'll get to 19 and suddenly it'll go to 21. So where was 20? Well, either it wasn't finished so they didn't put it in the prototype, or it was so buggy that they just took it out altogether. We don't know what those decision-making processes were. We don't have much insight into it because even the hiddenpalace.org entry is bereft of information. All it says is a prototype of the unreleased Off the Wall for TurboGrafx 16. It doesn't say anything about the programmers or developers or when it was found or how it was found. It just says there's a Game Gear version and a TurboGrafx 16 version, and that's it. Apparently, though, there's a second version of the Off the Wall prototype which has not been dumped, and that one gives us a little more information about the game. Now at least we know that the author is Jun Amanai, and if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, I apologize for that. Quoting from hiddenpalace.org, "This version is said to be farther along than the one that was dumped. The developer stated on his YouTube channel that the high projected cost combined with the lack of a volume type controller, meaning a paddle controller, that's what he's describing. You know, it would make sense to play a game like this with a paddle instead of a D-pad, but I digress. The lack of a volume type controller on TurboGrafx 16 was ultimately what sealed this game's fate. It is currently being sold on SaveJapan.com/shop for $6,800. And I'm guessing by the fact it's never been dumped, nobody was willing to pay $6,800 for an unreleased TurboGrafx 16 prototype that may or may not be more complete than the one that already exists. We have only his word to go on, and unless that dump is shown to other people like Frank Cifaldi or Jeremy Parrish or somebody that's in the dumping and preserving community that is active in this, that is taking care of this, even somebody from hiddenpalace.org, because, I mean, like I said at the beginning, this is where I got my prototype of Off the Wall from, so if they could at least look at a dump and compare it to the dump they have, we'd know how much further along it was. But I guess the seller would probably be afraid to do that, because if you let somebody look at it, even temporarily, if a copy remained, then the value of their prototype would no longer be worth $6,800. It would be worthless. But if the EEPROMs in it die, then it's going to be worthless anyway. That's the catch-22 of this thing, and why so many of these games need to be dumped and preserved now while they still can be, before things go bad and the games no longer work anymore. Don't take that chance that it's going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever in this world. Even the preserved dumps may not last forever if the internet goes away. There's no such thing as certainty, but the more backups that exist and the more different places those backups exist, the better off we all are for the future longevity of some of these games. I guess the bottom line on Off the Wall is, it seems like they had something here. Maybe the paddle controller or the lack thereof is the reason why they didn't finish. Maybe it was going to be too expensive to manufacture the game on a HuCard. I can't attest to either of those things, but I see, at least in this version, not speaking for the Game Gear version because I'm not playing that here, but I see in this version the potential for something good if they had kept at it, added different obstacles in the playfield with enemies, different types of bricks, if they had made it more flexible in the way that you controlled the paddle, with or without a paddle controller, mind you. If they had just tweaked a few more things, this could have been a good game. It seems like it would be limited in its sellability, if that's even a word though. And there's nothing here that's going to make this a flagship TurboGrafx game. There's no mascot character, there's no superb soundtrack, there's no identifying thing that's like, wow, we just gotta have another Breakout clone. Everybody run out and buy this game. There were so many already at this point. I mean, Breakout games go all the way back to the 1970s. Shortly after Pong came out in arcades was the first Breakout game. And Arkanoid was arguably the greatest refinement of that game to come along thanks to Taito in the 80s. So I'm not sure Off the Wall can compare to Arkanoid or any of the other more sophisticated Breakout style games that had already been put out on the market by the early 1990s when this was in development. And that may be the real reason that Off the Wall was canceled. Not the lack of a volume controller, aka paddle, not the cost of producing the HuCards, but somebody at Tengen looked at the bottom line and said, are we really going to sell a lot of these? Is this going to be a huge hit for us? Are we going to sell more copies of this than Bonk's Adventure? Probably not. Why are we putting so much time and effort into this? The TurboGrafx 16 is barely a market in North America. PC Engine is on the decline compared to Super Famicom and the Mega Drive, so maybe we'll just stop right here and cut our losses. And so they did. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This has been the PC Engine Files with the prototype of Off the Wall. As always, thank you for liking, watching, sharing, subscribing. Whatever you do to support the channel, thank you.